Gruen. Welcome to Gruen. We begin with huge news.
Vegemite is relatively unknown in the US, and now a chef in New York has come up with Vegemite pizza.
Vegemite pizza, just what I've never wanted. This is a huge story because for years we've been force-feeding Vegemite to Americans, and now an American is force-feeding it to Americans.
I heard you use Vegemite on toast. Here at Rosa's Pizza in Brooklyn, we make pizza with it.
That's Giovanni Fabiano, an Italian name-haver and Brooklyn pizza chef, so renowned when you Google him, all that comes up is this very story about his Vegemite pizza. And the Australian media ate it up.
A chef in Brooklyn has discovered there's a better way to eat it.
An Aussie staple has made its way to a New York pizza shop as one of its key ingredients.
Sending a message to Australia that we shouldn't be limited to just smearing it on toast.
Yes, they all laid it on thick, promoting the new Vegemite ambassador. I'm amazed they found out about him because Vegemite pizza's nowhere to be found on Giovanni's own menu. But we can't go to New York, so how do we try this pizza? Well, good news. In an incredible coincidence, some humble Australian pizza masters saw Giovanni's invention, and only 9 days later, we're ready to roll out this. Just like Giovanni used to not really make. The Domino's Vegemite pizza was an instant hit amongst people shame-eating in their car and Brekkie TV hosts who tried to say Vegemite as many times as possible.
Australia?
I love Vegemite. Strong on the Vegemite.
Vegemite.
That's a lot of Vegemite.
Vegemite and cream cheese on toast
I don't know
is
about that.
stunning.
It is not stunning, Koshy, but it is a stunt. I expected more from the people behind these previous marketing stunts. And this deep dish scandal goes deeper. 6 years before Giovanni didn't invent Vegemite pizza, Pizza Hut released this. It looked about as tasteful as their soundtrack and was soon pulled for infringing Vegemite's copyright. Forget the crust, this whole invention is stuffed. Well, if Vegemite can invent an inauthentic pizza mashup, so can we. So we asked a local pizza master to invent a Primo Scrambles pizza. How did it taste?
I would not recommend this pizza to serving any of our customer. It would be not so good.
Not so good. But I know one person who would love it. Here you go, Russ. A Primo Scramble Vegemite pizza. And it is disgusting. Johnny Russell Howcroft is Carolyn Miller, Dee Madigan and Todd Sampson. It's almost the first Tuesday of November, which, according to this 1969 ABC News story, means just one thing.
Well, there's only one certainty in the Melbourne Cup today, and I can assure you this is the place to find it. It doesn't really matter which horse wins the race, because the only real winner is right here, the TAB.
And in the most sickening recent news since Primo Scrambles Pizza, Australians are now per capita the biggest gamblers in the world. And during lockdown, gambling increased by almost 300%. I did not even know percentages went that high. Which may have something to do with the more than 404,000 gambling ads played on TV and radio this year alone, like this one.
Ever since I retired from basketball, I've never been busier. You say bet? There's a lot you can do in a few seconds, even with just one hand.
How did they get Shaq in an ad? And then there's this campaign starring Mark Wahlberg, or should I say, Mike Iceberg.
At Ladbrokes, our aim is to make racing even more exciting. Introducing our new Chief Entertainment Officer,
Mike Iceberg.
I am here to show you all how to Ladbroke it. Let's Ladbroke the action!
That's not safe.
Let's Ladbroke the riders. Ladbroke the winners! Let's Ladbroke the
The good news, that rocket blew up and now he's dead. Now, why is Mark Wahlberg, sorry, Mike Iceberg, being so obnoxious?
Well, I don't necessarily think that this character, Mike Iceberg, was scripted as being obnoxious. So I think it's entirely possible when this concept was put together, they put words like exciting and, you know, over the top and, you know, life of the party and all this sort of stuff to bring that character to be larger than life. What I think the problem is that when you brief an American megastar to go and be over the top and exciting, you can get someone who's going to grate on the Australian audience quite easily. So I think the obnoxious part of it is actually an accident, but I also think that Mark Wahlberg probably wanted to create as much distance from himself as a brand to this Mike Iceberg character. So there's
I don't know if he did that because he is also a dickhead.
He is, but I mean, it's a really weird use of Mark Wahlberg. And the weird thing is, I actually think, because I've got to say, I don't love this ad, and I actually feel for the agency that put it together, because I feel like they were given the brief to say, use Mark Wahlberg and do what you can with him.
I think that at the heart of it, they're doing something that's an old strategy, which is trying to create a verb out of the name, or what's often poorly referred to as verbification, brand verbification, like Google it, or Xerox it, or FaceTime it, or Ladbroke it.
Yeah, okay.
I think is what they're trying to do, and I think it's a pretty weak attempt and really wishful thinking. But one thing that they do incredibly well in that ad, and I can't believe I'm saying this because I hate it, is the branding. Like they say, I was counting as that ad was going on, they say the name, Ladbrokes, 10 times in 30 seconds, and they show the logo 20 times in that period. So they're really, I can imagine the creative community going, hate it, and the effectiveness paper going, it's incredible branding.
But showing the word, I mean, all I see is the word broke in a gambling ad.
Well, this is the thing, Ladbroke it. I thought Ladbroke, when I first saw Ladbroke as a name, I thought it was a piss take. The lads are now broke because of gambling. Right? And I didn't realize, it says a small village in England, which is where all the money goes, by the way, that, that they get from Australians.
Yeah, but also, I mean, it's a massive international brand. So that's part of the reason why I think they decided Mark Wahlberg's just to kind of elevate the status of what Ladbrokes is internationally here in Australia, where it's far less well known.
Russell, can I ask you about this? Because, like, does Mike Iceberg, a massive Ladbroke head, appeal to you?
Yes. We've got to remember that in the world of UK, when they make advertising, they actually make advertising deliberately to generate fame. They actually believe in fame as a strategy. The more famous you can make a brand, the more successful the brand is going to be. So that's purely what they're up to here. We'll get the most famous person we can afford. We're going to put them on a rocket. We're going to play it heaps of times. And we are going to energise the market as a result. As you've just said, the numbers are incredible. And yeah, I've watched it a lot over the last year plus, and I do enjoy it.
Yeah, but with this ad particularly, the thing that really grates on me, apart from the fact that Mark Wahlberg is a very irritating character in it, is the killjoy women in the office. It's the women rolling their eyes and, you know, going, oh, that's not safe, and those sorts of things that they're trying to escalate. If you're not on board with this, then you're a killjoy. Like, that stuff I actually genuinely hate, and that's really insidious that you can only have fun when you're gambling.
I've got to be honest with you, though. I really related to those women because he is a dickhead. Again, both the character and Mark Wahlberg. Do some Googling. So, gambling companies don't just want you, they're coming for your mates. The Tab wants you to sit in the pub and chat in its app. Should have sent your mate this. While Sportsbet has this campaign, which this year has been played more than 14,928 times.
I hope you come and surrender. We seek merely postponement. Your forces are weak, and you expect me to wait?
Fair point, mate. It's just, we're still alive in the quaddie over here.
You had that thing in the second leg?
Yeah, he just threw it in last minute.
Get on board. Sportsbet's new Bet with Mates. Start your group, bet together and share in the moment. Bet with Mates, new from Sportsbet.
The good news, the battle kicked off again and they all died. Yep, I'm going to kill them all off, every ad. D is the increased emphasis on mates because showing someone betting alone is just so sad.
Well, yes, it is. Now, Sportsbet have done some really clever ads. I don't like this one because I feel like I've seen the medieval trope done a million times. But the betting with mates strategy is smart because it normalises the activity. Like, you'd never see a beer ad with someone sitting by themselves at a bar. And I think the other reason is we're 80% more likely to buy something if a friend recommends it than an ad. So if our friends are doing it, the peer pressure works. But I think the third reason is really important. If you've got a group of young blokes gambling, you've got a group of young blokes drinking. Now, you combine the risk-taking of alcohol with the dopamine hit of gambling, and you've got a very, very profitable cocktail for the gambling industry. Like, Las Vegas was literally built on that.
But mates are, of course, the best salespeople for gambling and for gambling product because, of course, as we know, blokes in pubs, they need something to talk about. And what's happening here is it actually contributes to their socialising and the socialisation of them because there needs to be props. I mean, it's the same role that a pool table plays in a pub. It is something to have that conversation about. One of the things I like about
gambling... It's nice, isn't it? Men can finally get together, talk about their vulnerabilities. I don't have any money and I'm not sure why. I'm really struggling at home. I just can't explain it anyway. Let's get on the quaddie.
But the other thing which is interesting amongst mates, of course, is that the gambling companies have provided the language. So when they say, oh, what are you having on the quaddie? Well, of course, that's a product itself. Or if you're watching football, you'll have a conversation about the football. At the start of the football, who's going to kick the first goal? Now, the first goal is, again, that's a gambling product. No one talked about the first goal until you could bet on it, right? But then that fuels the conversation amongst mates. That's why having mates is so powerful in the advertising. The other thing I really like about gambling advertising is that it actually has taken over the void that the beer advertising has left. So we all used to every summer I could hardly wait for the next beer ad because invariably they'd be at least half good, right? Half entertaining, enjoyable, fun to watch, lots of money being spent on production. That doesn't happen so much now. So that void, in an entertainment sense, has been filled by gambling ads.
I think we need to just put a caveat on all of this that it's not necessarily good.
Well,
I'm just talking about...
If they were not taking all that money off people who were betting, they would not be able to afford those good ads.
But here's the thing. These ads are definitely exploitative of the COVID situation because they're playing on... There's two things. First, they know that people spend more money when they're betting with mates because there's a lot of peer pressure involved, so their volume goes up, more profit for them. And the second thing is they're playing on this notion that we can't get together, so let's get together online, which is the least regulated area and the most impulsive area in which you can gamble.
That a really important point leveraging off that is that this is an acquisition strategy. Yeah. So this is about these gambling companies being able to go and get more contacts of people they can then go and directly market to who may not have been within their ecosystem previously. So actually, if you are someone who is nominating a mate to be a part of your group and you're sending them a digital invite to actually come and join it, you are cursing them with this idea that they will now be absolutely bombarded with messaging and advertising and temptation from these gambling companies, whether they wanted it or not.
Betting companies all promise innovation, usually the same one.
Same race multis.
Same game multi.
Same game multi.
Multi!
Tab have also come up with venue mode, which gives you better odds for going to the pub. And if you can't get to the pub, betting will come to you with text messages, or as the betting industry calls it, and this is real, targeted promotional generosity. Todd, how does all this targeted promotional bullshit get us hooked?
Well, firstly, people can bet and that are not addicts, right? It is possible to bet for entertainment, but there are a large group of people that are not in that group. And what we do know is gambling is addictive. No one's debating that. Gambling is addictive. We do know that addicts, unfortunately, make great consumers because they spend a lot of money on impulse over and over and over again. And the other thing we know is advertising works. The reason there's 400,000 ads is because there is a dose-response effect from advertising. You see gambling advertising, you want to gamble. We know that. That's proven. And that's why there's so many ads. And here's the insidiousness of the personalization. Because when you go online, this is all being pushed online now because the regulations are pushing above the line to the Wild West in many cases, where it's less regulation. Here's the issue with personalizing. When you click and you're online, there's a wave of data that gets attached to your cookie. They know a lot about you. They can push messages directly to you. One, it's less regulated. Two, it's more personalized, so it's more trustworthy, more believable, more relevant. And then the third thing, which affects a lot of people, especially addicts, is they make it easy to participate, super easy. They lower the effort level. All you need to do is click, and you're by yourself. And that makes it addictive. And just like we protect kids from alcohol advertising, we should be protecting people from gambling. That doesn't mean we should outlaw it, but they should be protected from 400,000 ads being flooded their way.
But by shaking it up, by introducing these new things all the time and taking them out, what they are doing is increasing the dopamine effect. Because bizarrely, it doesn't come from winning. It comes from what's called an uncertain reward. And that's also about the experience. It's not about the outcome. So say you had a game, right, that gave you a guaranteed 30% return, but the game itself didn't change every time. It wouldn't actually be a successful gambling story because it doesn't have the uncertain reward. So that's why they do all these things. It's to keep it really interesting.
3 in 4 children who watch sport can name a betting company. And if your kid can't, they're an idiot who isn't paying attention. But don't worry, betting ads are strictly regulated. They can't show alcohol consumption, which is why people always smash back tea, coffee, water and milkshakes. Live betting events, formerly called sports, are supposed to have a siren-to-siren betting blackout. You know, at places like Bluebet Stadium, Lottoland Stadium or PointsBet Stadium, where teams play in jerseys like these. Gambling isn't just for the broke lads.
With the TAB, I think it's a very good place that the ladies can come to. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Well, there's certainly no toilet facilities for ladies.
No, I'll say that.
Big day at the races, won a bunch of money, did a shit in the sink. Take that, fellas. But traditionally, the ads have depicted women like this.
Yeah, the bikini. One of man's greatest inventions. But will it help you bet on your mobile?
Now, before you complain, that was from 10 whole years ago, when sexual harassment in ads was fine. Now gambling companies are betting on lines like this.
Looks like the women are
dominating again. Sure does.
They couldn't get 2 women, so they showed 1 woman twice. D, double or nothing, you know. So, D, will women fall for this?
Not for that ad, because it's just not a very good ad. And I think what they're trying to do with that ad is create the feeling of gambling, but it looks over-edited and under-ideaed. But women make up 30% of gamblers and women make up 50% of sports fans. There's a gap there that they're going with. And I reckon some of the socialisation on the new apps, you know, about chat functions and things like that is designed for women. But did you know that women are more likely to gamble successfully than men because they're less likely to make emotional gambling decisions?
Yeah. Gambling's not just about sport, though. Like, you can bet on royal baby names and who's going to win The Bachelor and do all this sort of stuff. And I'm going to imagine the main audience for that isn't men. I'm going to imagine that for that probably is more of the female gambling that we're actually talking about. But I also don't necessarily think this idea that gambling's only going to grow is the right way to look at it. I do think there needs to be a conversation from the other side of it going, what is this actually doing to our economy, to our society, all of that sort of stuff, and is this the right path to go down?
And this is the conundrum,
yeah,
especially with women. There will be more advertising going to women for one reason: more female sports on television. Therefore, more opportunities to gamble. And this is the conundrum of funding, is that, you know, some people argue that sport, you cannot separate sport from gambling because they feed each other. And it's really unfortunate because sport does become synonymous with gambling for younger generations. But when it comes to women, they're not going to go after women for equality reasons. They're going to go after women for profit reasons. And they're looking for a white space. And women around the world are an opportunity from a gambling perspective. And with more and more female sports going mainstream on television, more and more gambling ads pumped towards them.
But I don't think it's about sport.
It's not going to be full equality until there is an ad with a woman poking a man in the scrotum.
Then... Look at the budgie supplement smugglers.
There is one bit you can bet will be in every one of these ads.
Gamble responsibly.
Gamble responsibly.
Gamble.
Gamble. Gamble. Gamble. Gamble.
Gamble.
Responsibly. Fun fact, that phrase was coined by a US casino. Here, our own responsible caring betting companies also run anti-betting ads.
Oi, guys, it's the lost keys of the long weekend. From when we won the quaddie on Caulfield Cup Day.
Yep. I remember I gave it all back and then some.
Have you ever got carried away on the punt? Take a sec before you bet. Set a deposit limit, whoever you bet with.
Well, you've convinced me, while Leg Breaks offered this.
Know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table.
Punter Assist from Ladbrokes helps you stay in control of your gambling, because if it's no longer entertaining, you've got to know when to walk away.
Fun fact, Kenny Rogers didn't gamble, and the gambler in that song dies drunk on a train. I don't really know what fun facts are. Carolyn, are these gamble responsibly advertisements the equivalent of saying drink drive soberly?
Very possibly, yes. However, I do think they are important to have. So, obviously, they're being produced by the gambling companies themselves, so they're never going to be trying for effectiveness in that sense. But I do think it's important not to normalise gambling so much that no one ever thinks it can be problematic. And I do think that they're important to keep that kind of that social norm, if you like, that you can have a problem with gambling, just to keep that idea alive.
It's sort of nonsense, though, isn't it, to run advertising with the characters that you're running your ads and using those characters to have the gamble responsibly communication.
Yeah, I just want to say something about that ad with the Kenny Rogers song. I mean, that is an unbelievable piss take of the whole situation. So you use a song that celebrates gambling for your responsible gambling ad, and two guys drunk doing karaoke. That's your be responsible with gambling. I mean,
they're not drunk, though. They've had a couple of milkshakes. Betting ads might not want you to gamble responsibly, but we do, so we made our own campaign. This is a gambling ad. These blokes met at Gamblers Anonymous, and now they meet at the pub to stare at their phones. You see, when you start gambling, you want to do it all the time. It's pretty sad, actually. And while you think you're being awesome, everyone around you is sick of your shit. But not us, because we're addicted to you getting addicted to us. How do we have the money for all this advertising? Because you gave it to us, so gamble responsibly, but not too responsibly, because we're a massive pack of punts. Remember the good old days when we didn't know the name of our own premier, let alone other state premiers? We've asked our agencies to do something about this sad state of affairs. First up, a pitch to disband Federation.
Hi, I'm Jade from Magelli. For our ad, we saw Federation as something that seemed like a good idea at the time, but in hindsight, kind of wasn't. Hope you enjoy it.
A federation is a lot like a share house. At the time, moving in together under one set of house rules makes a lot of sense. You share the rent, you share the electricity bill, you share the water bill, and it works. For a while. Then you grow up a bit. Someone with a smaller room wants to pay less. Someone else isn't holding up their end of the bargain. Someone else wants their own independent trade deal to sell iron ore to China. A federation is a lot like a share house. And now we're all grown, it's time to move out. Because to be honest, like most share houses, it never really works out in the end.
And now a pitch to dissolve the states and convince Australians to be one again.
Hi, I'm Tim.
And I'm Anna, and we're from Chemistry Brisbane.
Every Aussie grows up hearing about how other states do things differently, for better or worse. Our idea is to scrap the states, but to keep the best bits from each to create a better, more unified Australia.
Australia, we're blueing amongst ourselves. States are turning on one another and the police are only making it worse. It's time to give them the flick and federate a new Australia with only the best bits. Like fireworks from the ACT, daylight savings from Vic and Mardi Gras from New South Wales. We'd have no speed limit from the top end. Free ambos from Queensland, euthanasia from WA. Let's make that diamonds. And what can South Australia bring to the table? Wine. That everyone? Good. Plus, we get all the public holidays. So come on, Australia, let's be one and free. Because how good would that be? Authorised by the Australian Government, Australia.
Well, you've convinced me. But what will our panel think? Russell, Howcroft, which did you prefer?
I really liked Chemistry's line 1 and 3. I did like that a lot. However, the storyline in the first campaign from Red Jellies got me sold.
Carolyn, what about you?
I just couldn't go for the second campaign because I left out Tassie and didn't seem to care. So I'm going to go for the first one.
Dee, what about you?
I'm going for number 1 as well. I thought the analogy of the house was relevant and beautifully told, so I'm number 1.
Todd? Tiebreaker.
Tiebreaker, yes. I liked the Fed exit, so I'm going with 1.
OK, congratulations, Red Jelly. We will get this trophy to you when the borders open. In 1907, there was a global event called the Banker's Panic, which I assumed was a shortage of Class A drugs and pinstripe suits, until I found out it was one of the worst financial crises to ever hit the world. It was against this backdrop that William Wrigley made the most of low advertising rates to turn Wrigley into the world's best-selling chewy. Fast forward to a few years of indoor living and mask breath, we're experiencing a global decrease in gum sales. But when Britain's lockdowns lifted in June, Wrigley's Extra had a big worldwide campaign ready to go.
Hello, we've got some big news this morning. We are back, folks. That's right, we can see people again. Can you believe it? It's all coming back, it's all coming back to me now. There were moments of gold and there were flashes of light. There were nights of endless pleasure. It was more than any loss in love. Baby, if I kiss you like this, and if you whisper like that, it was lost long ago, but it's all coming back to me. I can barely recall, but it's all coming back to me
And that is how COVID-20 started. Dee, will this ad work to sell gum?
Yes, because it does it right. What it does is it connects the consumer need to the product benefit. And too many brands do it wrong. They'll talk about what their product does. Consumers don't care about what the product does. You care about what it does for you. And kissing is kind of the ultimate efficacy test for a fresh breath product. But where it really works is it really taps into the insight of post-pandemic behaviour. Now, we don't remember what post-pandemic behaviour is, but sociologists do. So if you look at 1918 flu, right, it was a period of conservative behaviour because that's how people act in a pandemic. Afterwards, you had the Roaring '20s. It's licentious, it's sex, it's drugs, it's all these things. So in this ad, you've got these people, you know, it's not romantic, it's people just madly making out in a park and falling off trees. You know, we are in for a slutty summer, and I say bring it on.
What I love is sex and drugs, the two main reasons that people buy gum. So you're right. Russell, do you agree?
I thoroughly agree. I think Dee absolutely nailed it. You know, the notion of people being locked up for a long period of time. So we know that when the first fleet arrived, they were, whether you were wearing a uniform, whether you're an officer or whether you're in chains, they basically took off their uniform, they took off their chains, and they had 48 hours of going completely nuts, right? So they, like full Bacchanalian. And we know that to be true because many children were born 9 months later. It's a fact that is what happened.
Wow,
after
is this bedtime stories like Russell
Oh, man, I can't wait for this version of the Lamb ad on Australian Open.
I know, right? So the idea that, you know, finally we are released out back into, and we got our freedom back. And I just love the fact that Wrigley's made this commercial. It could have been made by all sorts of brands, but to actually get something like this made, like to just put yourself in the room, Will. So imagine that you're the advertising agency and you turn up with a script and you say, here's what we want to do. Most clients would say, you've got to be joking. No, we're not going to advertise, go nuts, have a slutty summer, let's go full orgy. They're not going to do it. And yet Wrigley said yes, and good on them for it, and they will sell tons and tons of it. I've been buying lots of chewing gum ever since I saw this commercial. I mean, seriously, I'm hoping for something random to happen to me in a park.
Yeah. You see Russell in a park?
Well,
look, honestly, I actually think with this ad, there's no question that this ad is kind of feeling like it's going to be New Year's Eve 2000 again, like that is the vibe of it, which is not necessarily how everyone feels about it. But at the same time, I think where this really failed, and I know Dee won't agree with me on this one, is I absolutely hate the soundtrack that they've picked for this.
No!
I hate the Celine Dion.
It is overblown. It's over-dramatic. I have this... I'm not ashamed to admit I run to this song every day.
Well,
See,
you should be ashamed.
That would make me mute my TV immediately, and I just don't think it's a
God, I feel like I'm
celebration.
hosting The Voice. It's so fun. Hang on.
Carolyn,
But yeah, I think they could have done something with a lot more energy and a lot more freedom than what Celine actually brings to the table.
It's the fact that it's all coming back to me.
The lyrics works. The energy of the music doesn't.
Many post-COVID campaigns have coincided with increased infections and restrictions. Wrigley's lean into the grossness, a tumbleweed of masks, a stash of toilet paper. Zoom, 10:48 a.m. sleep-ins and bed pizza. Todd, why go gross?
I don't think they went gross. I actually enjoy the ad. It is possibly the most colourful, interesting fear ad that I've seen in a long time, because this strategy is based on the old Listerine strategy. You know, Listerine did not create mouthwash, it created halitosis, or the notion that bad breath is bad. It created a social norm to make people paranoid about their breath. And gum is just a modernized version of that that's taken over. And there's a brilliant moment where this young woman is about to kiss the man they meet and in the ad, and suddenly she realizes, oh, I don't have my shield or my sword, and you hear the shing come out as she grabs it and puts it in her mouth. That's a fear ad. That's an ad saying, before you kiss someone, because he's gonna think, or she is gonna think, you are hideous, unworthy because your breath smells, put this in your mouth. And for that, I think that's done that job incredibly well.
Yeah. Running at 2 minutes and 34 seconds, the full version of that extra ad, long-form film, is less mass marketing and more mass orgy. Other brands are getting in on the action too. One data company found that ads with people making out result in 165% more clicks. Carolyn, how do you choreograph the perfect advertising kiss?
Well, look, there is a bit of a formula to it, and I think that the starting point for it is you've got to have compatible attractiveness. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you both have to be supermodels. It just means that if you've got someone average, they need to be with someone average, and if you've got someone who's super gorgeous, they need to be with someone super gorgeous. But yeah, so you get your compatible, attractive people, and the big part of what's interesting in a kiss on screen is anticipation. So it's actually the moments drawing in before the actual kiss happens that is the most interesting to people, which is why you'll often find that the frames get slowed down actually before that comes in and connects, and then kind of keep the tongues out of it. That's why you often get angles moving once the actual kiss is underway, is because no one really just wants to watch people, you know, grinding their mouths together. People actually, you need to have something that is a bit more inferred rather than actually showing the full extent of what's happening in the kiss.
Ironically, COVID makes this ad, the kissing in this ad, work, because they were under COVID restrictions, because it was filmed 3 months ago. So what they did is the only people kissing are people from the same household.
When I heard that, I thought, God, I hope they're not related.
It's so, but it's so clever, isn't it? Because then you think about it, they're all passing each other because they all know each other. They're not actually they're actors and actresses, but they're actually friends or lovers. So that's what makes the whole thing so...
Or close brothers
or
and sisters.
brothers and sisters. Yeah. Doesn't matter, as long as they have gum in their mouth, they're fine.
The real star in the extra ad is a Celine Dion song written by Meatloaf's composer Jim Steinman, which has already appeared in other ads.
When I touch you like this, and I hold you like that, you touch me like this, and when you hold me like that.
Personally, I like to imagine a world where Extra had sung a more fitting tune.
Open your heart.
That's the way I like it. That's all we have time for this week. Thanks to our panel, Russell, Carolyn, Dee and Todd. Now, while we're all in this together, it turns out one man is really born for this bullshit.
Hey, Will.
Oh, hi, Ben Lee.
I'm so glad about how passionate you guys are about the stories behind ad jingles.
Oh, thanks. I agree.
I was a little bit peeved, to be honest, that I got left out of the story behind what happened with the Bunnings theme.
Oh, OK. What's the story then, Ben Lee?
Because not a lot of people know this, that they had the instrumental version and they asked me to write a version with lyrics. And I worked really hard on it and I was really proud of it.
Oh, OK. Well, I guess let's hear it. I just hope it's appropriate for this time slot. We'll see you next week.
The stolen winter bunnies, I forget just why I came here. The stolen winter bunnies, I forget just why I came here. The stolen winter bunnies. Got stolen winter bunnies, I forget just why I came here. The stolen winter bunnies, I forget just why I came here. The stolen winter bunnies, I forget just why I came here. Give me one of those. Give me 18 feet of hose. Cause I'm really so. So there you go.
If you've been affected by the issues raised in this program, please contact the following services: Lifeline 13 11 14, Gambling Help Online 1800 858 858,